making his way to the ring from the fifth dimension, weighing 220 pounds, Stardust!
It's nothing on Earth, it's from the stars, it's Stardust.
We said it was all mental with Cody Rhodes. Maybe he's found what's gotten him out of that slump.
You're living the gimmick. You do understand that Stardust is a character that you play on television, that you're really Cody Rhodes, right?
I did not want to do what Dustin does. That to me is a living hell.
After winning the undisputed Universal Championship at WrestleMania 40, Cody Rhodes has undeniably cemented himself as the new face of the WWE. However, before captivating millions of fans with his story as the American Nightmare, he was once the eccentric face-painted Goldust wannabe known as Stardust, a gimmick so infamously bad it nearly destroyed his wrestling career. So what exactly happened? How did WWE ruin such a talented second-generation wrestler that he had to leave the company and reinvent himself? In order to fully understand Cody's transformation to Stardust, we first have to go back to when he started teaming with his brother Goldust. During the tail end of 2013, the Rhodes brothers enjoyed a brief moment in the limelight when they battled the Shield as part of the Authority angle, a gripping storyline that involved the Rhodes brothers getting fired, only for them to win it back and save their father's job in a feel-good moment at the Battleground pay-per-view. This would all culminate in a tag team title victory on the October 14th episode of Raw, becoming one of the few teams to knock off the Shield twice in tag team competition. It was a brief but amazing feud, one that could have, no, should have catapulted Cody into the next level. Instead, what followed was a middle-of-the-road title run that failed to capitalize on the initial hot streak that got them over with the fans. And their reign would sadly end in a whimper at Royal Rumble the following year, dropping the belts to the New Age Outlaws on the pre-show of all places. It was at this point that some people in the WWE believed that their run had gotten stale, which ultimately was the reason why the Stardust gimmick came into existence. Cody would later peel back the curtain even further on this, recounting how Stephanie McMahon accidentally pitched the idea. And I quote, "We came back through the curtain and the crowd reactions were getting a little less for the Brotherhood. We had a really hot run for a minute." The chief brand officer of WWE, Stephanie McMahon, said, "Why don't you paint your face like your brother?" She was only making a suggestion, but someone's face lit up. Unfortunately for Cody, that someone would be none other than Vince McMahon, who liked the idea so much, he immediately put him in touch with creative services to work on the design of the character. And thus, the Stardust gimmick was officially in the works. The events that followed planted the seeds for Cody's transformation into the character, as the brothers would go on a losing streak, with the dashing one getting more and more frustrated as weeks went on. And at the Payback pay-per-view, the duo suffered another major loss to Ryback, which became the straw that finally broke the camel's back, as Cody, believing that he was the weak link, asked Goldust to find a better tag team partner. Cody did try and recruit other superstars to be his replacement, but alas, none of them just worked out. And after several failed attempts, he would finally find the perfect partner, one that would match his brother's bizarre persona. On the July 16th edition of Raw, the mystery partner was unveiled at last to be the intergalactic creature known as Stardust.
What on Earth? What on Earth? Stardust!
Yeah, they could have sold his debut better, but regardless, the Dusts, as I would now refer to them from this point onwards, made light work of Ryback and snapped that losing streak that's been plaguing them for months. Turns out, all Cody really needed was a fresh coat of paint. Literally. But it wasn't just smoke and mirrors. Even though everybody and their mother knew that it was just Cody in a skin-tight bodysuit and face paint, he still went all in his role as Stardust. From the way he spoke in riddles, his mannerisms in and out of the ring, to even his moveset, sporting a new finishing move called the Dark Matter. And his dedication to the character is what made it work, for a while at least, as general consensus towards the Stardust gimmick were initially pretty positive. Crazy as it might sound, their backstage vignettes were some of the more entertaining segments on both Raw and SmackDown during this time. Inside the ring, the Dusts went on an absolute tear, defeating Ryback 3 more times before finding themselves back in tag team title contention, this time against the Usos. Their first title opportunity though didn't turn out the way they wanted, ending in a count-out victory. And after the match, the Dusts would brutally beat down the Usos out of frustration and turn heel in the process. Fortunately for them, they'd get another crack at the belts at Night of Champions 2014, and this time, they made sure to get the job done, winning the tag team titles, or in Stardust's term, They continued to feud with the Usos for a month or so, getting the better of their rivals several times before dropping the belts to The Miz and Damian Mizdow in a fatal 4-way match at Survivor Series. In a cruel twist of fate, the Dusts would find themselves in the same losing streak rut they were in at the start of the year. And yet again, dissension started creeping in, with Stardust becoming more and more unhinged as the weeks went on. Dusty would try to get his sons back on the same page, but even his intervention wasn't enough to save Cody from himself. And on the February 16, 2015 episode of Raw, Stardust turned on his brother by blindsiding him with a crossroads after losing another match to the New Day. Later that same night, he would get confronted by Dusty, where he went off on his father, calling him an embarrassment and muttering some truly haunting words.
Cody Rhodes is dead as far as I am concerned. So is my father.
With the Stardust persona now having fully taken over Cody, it was up to Dustin to whoop his brother's ass back to reality. The two would clash at Fastlane in a decent match that should have been way better were it not for the dead silent crowd and the totally botched finish. Following Fastlane, Stardust would launch a surprise attack on Goldust when disguised as a rosebud, and that was the end of the feud. There was no retaliation by Goldust after, no promo by Stardust to explain his actions. In fact, the brothers would never even interact again after this. The storyline was suddenly just dropped faster than Kofi Kingston's Jamaican accent. To call it lackluster would be underselling just how bad WWE messed up the whole thing. And by the time March rolled around, Stardust had moved on to chasing after the Intercontinental title as if none of the Goldust stuff ever happened. Thankfully, we would get the real conclusion to this 4 years later, just in another promotion that is. But going back to Stardust, he would find himself competing in a 6-man ladder match for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 31, which he lost. Stardust would meander around the midcard after WrestleMania season, from accepting John Cena's US title open challenge to having a short string of matches with R-Truth. By this point, the character has shifted to more of a comic book-ish supervillain, with Cody continuing to live the gimmick, as Michael Cole pointed out during a sit-down interview with the Cosmic One. And what does every good supervillain need? An even greater superhero to foil their evil schemes. For Stardust, that would come in the form of Canadian actor Stephen Amell, who at the time played the hero/vigilante character in the hit CW television series Arrow. On the May 25th edition of Raw, Stardust was scheduled to face Neville in singles action. However, during his entrance, he would get in the face of Amell, who was in the crowd watching the show. And after the match, he was asked backstage about the confrontation, to which he called out the Arrow star, marking the beginning of their rivalry. Around the same time, Stardust also drew the ire of Neville, who he believed to be another hero in his own right. And after weeks of antagonizing the man that gravity forgot, while also taking shots at Stephen Amell, things would finally come to a head in the August 10th edition of Raw when Stardust came out of nowhere to beat down Neville after his match with King Barrett. He wouldn't stop there though, as Stardust again confronted his adversary and shoved him in the face, which prompted a comeback from the Arrow star. Later backstage, Amell demanded Triple H to put him in a match with Stardust in order to settle their beef in the ring once and for all. The game hesitated at first, but eventually relented and made the match official. So at SummerSlam 2015, it was the team of Stardust and King Barrett facing off against Neville and Stephen Amell in tag team action. Remember, this was before the renaissance of celebrity wrestlers, so people weren't really sure if Amell could hang in the ring. But he quickly shut those critics up as he carried himself like a pro, taking high-risk spots and living up to the Green Arrow moniker. In the end, the good guys won, vanquishing the villains once and for all. Or did they? In a 2016 interview, Cody Rhodes revealed that there were actually initial plans for a one-on-one rematch with Stephen Amell at Hell in a Cell. This would have also seen the end of the Stardust character, but unfortunately for Cody, the plans fell through and he continued playing the character, much to his disappointment. And after turning on King Barrett post SummerSlam, Stardust would continue to feud with Neville, this time finding new allies in The Ascension. Together, they would form the faction known as the Cosmic Wasteland. It seemed as though this new alliance had the potential to elevate everyone involved when they defeated Neville and the Lucha Dragons at the Night of Champions kickoff show. However, However, that quickly turned out to be wishful thinking as they lost to the same team the very next night on Raw and again on SmackDown, and then lost again to just about everybody else they faced as a unit. There were attempts to set up a Stardust and Cesaro feud during this time, but even that quickly flamed out when the Swiss Cyborg got injured, and that pretty much spelled the end for the Cosmic Wasteland's short-lived run. Yet another storyline involving Stardust that was quietly dropped by WWE without any explanation. At this point, it was clear that the Stardust gimmick had completely run its course, with WWE using the Cosmic One mostly as enhancement talent for the remainder of his run. Stardust would compete in a ladder match for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 32, which he lost, before losing again to the winner of that ladder match, Zack Ryder, on the May 16, 2016 episode of WWE Superstars. And this would end up being Cody's last match of his initial WWE run, as he asked for and was granted his release just 5 days later. When asked about his release, Cody cited creative frustrations as one of the main driving factors for his departure, saying,
I felt like I was boxed into just doing Stardust, so for the first time ever in my career, it felt like it was no longer possible to win. So it was a part of the decision and made it a lot easier for me to go.
After leaving the company, Cody Rhodes would ditch the Stardust gimmick entirely and reinvent himself in the independent scene, performing for various promotions including TNA, New Japan, and AEW, before returning home to WWE in 2022 as the American Nightmare. And the rest, as they say, is history. So how bad was the Stardust gimmick actually? Well, if I'm gonna give it a rating from 1 to 10, with 1 being
It's awful.
and 10 being
I mean, it's alright, like.
I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. Let me explain why. You see, Stardust isn't a bad idea for a gimmick entirely. It had the potential to be a great avenue for character-driven storytelling. Unfortunately, WWE just happened to fumble the bag with the gimmick in so many ways. From the moment of its inception, where Vince kept picking costumes that looked like Goldust, to actually botching the feud with Goldust, Stardust was never really given the tools to succeed. What should have been a short-term gimmick used to further the Rhodes story ended up being a prison Cody tried so hard to escape. And thank God he did, because for all of the gimmick's faults, in hindsight, it was also a necessary evil. Had Stardust not stuck around for far longer than it should have, Cody probably wouldn't have left the WWE to become an indie star. And if it wasn't for that, then we sure as heck wouldn't get All In, which means that AEW would not exist today. So as ridiculous as it sounds, it's about time we give Stardust his flowers for kickstarting the pro wrestling renaissance that we as fans are enjoying right now. If you watch this video all through the end, let me know by saying thank you Stardust in the comments below. And for more banger content, check out the video right here on your screen. See you there.